Good morning. Welcome to House for Healing for the Nations. Welcome Facebook, welcome YouTube, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for listening, tuning in. Across the screen, you should see some things come across. If you feel the need to go ahead and just to donate or give tithes or give a love offering, whatever you would like to do, the information is coming across the screen right now. We just want to thank you for that. We were having church here before the cameras came on, and we were doing our own praise and worship, and God had some things to say, and it's good. It's really good. One of my church members is red like a tomato, but that's okay. It's all good because God is good. And so today we're going to be talking about humility and faith, right? Let me give you a piece of advice. If you walk around saying, I'm humble, I can tell you you're not, okay? Humility is not something that you stand up there and brag about. I'm humble. I'm humble. No. God will tell you if you're humble. People will see the humility in you. Like Mother Teresa, that was a humble woman. Yeah. But I've never heard, and I watched the whole thing about her life story, but she never once said, I'm humble. She never did. But yet her actions spoke more than her words did. Sometimes actions speak louder than words. And so if you're really humble, then let your action speak. You do not need to announce it. And if you need to announce it, you might want to go sit with Jesus about why. Because I can guarantee that there's something else going on there, and it's the opposite of humility. So, with that in mind, we're going to go to 1 Peter 5. What did he say? What did you say?
Give me a second.
Oh, okay, we need a second. Going through technical difficulties. In the meantime, everybody else can go ahead and turn to 1 Peter 5, 6 to 8. And, Well,
Just wait till it's on screen.
Are you getting close? We're so sorry. We're getting there. We're getting there. If anybody wanted to know what to pray for like more like technical things, that we need, because God knows we need more technical things. There we go. We're going now. Okay. Alana, could you read it for me, please?
If you bow low in God's awesome presence, He will eventually exalt you as you leave the timing in His hands. Pour out all your worries and stress upon Him and leave them there, for He always tenderly cares for you. Be well balanced and always alert, because your enemy, the devil, roams around incessantly like a roaring lion looking for its prey to devour. Take a decisive stand against him and resist his every attack with strong, vigorous faith. For you know that your believing brothers and sisters around the world are experiencing the same kinds of troubles you endure. And then, after your brief suffering, the God of all loving grace, who has called you to share in His eternal glory in Christ, will personally and powerfully restore you and make you stronger than ever. Yes, He will set you firmly in place and build you up. And He has all the power needed to do this forever. Amen.
So in here, Peter is trying to encourage believers to practice humility and trust with God, to give Him their worries and stresses and cares and all those different things. The way to obtain humility, right, is that you have to surrender to God and to even human beings. Like, that's a whole different level. right? So like I had no problem, like really, I don't have a problem surrendering to God. I had a problem surrendering to human beings because I did not trust human beings. And this is what God said to me. He says, once you trust me, you don't have to worry about the human beings, but you surrender to them as well. Well, that wasn't coming so easy. He said it, but it wasn't so easy for me. And so what did he do? He put me into different situations that caused me to have to surrender to a human being. That means that I have to allow that person to say and do things, and I have to be okay, even if like taking a chance to be harmed or taking a chance to be verbally assaulted. And sometimes it did happen. And then I went back and I said, this is exactly why I didn't want to do it, right? But you see, God, he was doing something in me. He is still doing something in me where I have no problems being able, I'm not quite there yet, I'm just going to let you know, okay? I'm just being really honest, that I don't have a problem with certain things. Now, I do not like people trying to control me. That is like my absolute, like, no. And I tend to get a little hostile when people try to control me. See, this is my belief. If Jesus doesn't control me, then why should you? And he doesn't. He asks me to do things. Susan, I need you to do this. Will you do this for me? Susan. And I do have free will choice. Now, I say yes to, not all the time. In the past, I did not always say yes. I did not. And it's not that the boulder of lightning will come down and strike you. It is more that you're stuck in a place. You see, because when he asks us to do things, it's to set us free, to grow our character, to get to a different place to where we are. And so all I did was allow myself to be stuck until I started picking up on, well, maybe I should start listening. And then it's also keeping you out of danger. So if he tells you don't do this and you do it, bad things happen. Now, I was famous for that. If he told me don't do this, okay, so I have a story. So like when I was young, he told me not to cut school, right? But that day I was having a rough day and I was like, I don't want to see anybody. So I'm going to go hang out at the pizzeria, okay? So in New York, you know, pizzeria is one of those, not these chain things that people have here in Florida. It's an actual individual pizzeria and it's great. You know what I mean? It's just, New York pizza is great. It really is. And so, excuse me. And so I went and I hung. He said, don't go, right? And I said, oh, but I don't want to be there. So no, I'm going to go. As I went, walking along, I knew where everybody was. I knew where my mother was. I knew that the person that I refer to as my stepfather, and the reason why I say it like that is because they never got married, but I still called him my stepfather. So he's really my mother's boyfriend. I knew where he was. You know what I'm saying? So I thought I had this down packed, okay? I know where everybody was and what they're doing. So I can go. This is my window and I'm taking it. And so I went out there and let me just tell you, I was moseying along like I didn't have any worries. Went into the pizzeria, came out with my pizza. Now it's very common in New York, especially back in the days, to come out with a slice of pizza and just walk around with it, or a bagel and cream cheese, and just walk around with it and eat it while you walk. So I come out and I'm eating my pizza and what do I hear? Susan! I said, oh, God. I know that voice. It's my mother. And she said to me, I was in the house and all of a sudden I heard, you need to go on the highway, which means King's Highway, which is, it's not really like a highway where there's like a lot of cars. It's more like a store. And that's what we called it, the highway. So she heard a voice say, go on the highway. Okay? You're going to see Susan there. No, you didn't bust me, Jesus. No, you didn't bust me. And I'm standing there looking, my eyes wide open. I'm just like, what? And she's like, you know, she's yelling at me in the street, you know? Well, at this moment, I can't hear nothing. I can't see nothing because first of all, the embarrassment is falling upon me. And then I just realized God just bust me. Okay. Like, yo, you dropped dime on me. You don't do that. You don't know. We from New York. You don't do that. You don't drop dime. You know? I'm standing there. And she goes, we're going to talk about this when you get home. Well, now I'm saying, oh God, I got to think of something real good, you know? And as I started, she sent me back to go back to school, you know? And so as I started walking back, I started talking to him. I was like, what is with that? Why did you do that? He said, because you thought you had a control over everything. He said, Susan, I am God. I am the one that has control, not you. And you need to understand that you don't know what could have happened to you while nobody knows where you are. Your mother thinks that you're secure in school. You don't know. Suppose you get hit by a car. You do not have any information on you that says where you're from or anything to contact your phone. Because back then we didn't have cell phones and all those other good stuff, right? And so he says, you don't know. You're putting yourself in danger. And I told you not to do it. You don't know what's ahead of you and what I'm sparing you from. Well, I was going all the way back to school crying. I don't care. I don't care what was going to happen to me. You busted me. That's all I cared about, is that he busted me. But I started realizing as time went on that it's not that God is punishing me. He's actually protecting me. Okay, it's about how we view things in our brain, right? We view things that when somebody does something a certain way and it doesn't line up to what we want, then therefore they're doing harm against us. And that's a lie, right? It's a lie. God doesn't do harm to us, right? He doesn't sit back there and say, what, today? Check. Yep, so you're going to get hit by a bus. Okay? He doesn't do that. We live in a fallen world. Bad things happen. It's written even in the Bible. Bad things happen to good people. It's a fact. This is the thing, though. This is the good thing. Bad things may happen. You may go through the fire, but you're not alone once you give your life to Jesus. Once you walk with Jesus, you're not alone. And so you must learn to surrender yourself to him completely. You know, the opposite of humility is arrogance and conceit. And that's a lot. And I'm going to tell you right now, I was really arrogant. Ooh, Jesus, was I arrogant. Oh, my God, was I arrogant. Right? And, you know, it was nothing reeked of humility, nothing. And I was extremely arrogant. And I was proud of it too. I knew I was arrogant. And I was proud. And I'm going to tell you why I was proud. Because I thought I could control certain things. I heard from God. And then in some cases, I used my gifting for my own personal gain. It's not like I made any money or anything if I was smart. Right? But I went ahead and I felt like I was in control of my life. I wasn't in control of anything. I actually made myself more stuck. So, ask God what you need and what you want. Tell him, right? But then you also must wait for him to answer your requests. Now, sometimes he won't. I'm sorry, but sometimes God will say no. I have been plenty of times when I say things to God and he says no, Susan. I'm like, well, no, I don't want to hear no. I want to hear yes. He says, and if I say yes, you don't know what that means, what's going to happen to you. I'm saying no for a reason. And then there are times when God says yes, but it doesn't work out in the timing that we think, okay? Let me just tell you something about human beings. We have a way of thinking that we are so in control of our own life and we're in control of timing. We're not in control of squat. We can't. If you can't control, like, like you're breathing. I mean, really, you can't. I mean, you're breathing automatically. Yes, you could stop breathing. You could just hold your breath and then die like that. I mean, that's something totally different. But if you really think about it, God created us to do this naturally, breathe, right? And our brain is doing that. It's telling the rest of. But what happens when your brain is not doing it? And people that have Alzheimer's, they go through that where their brain stops telling. Now, if they had control, I'm sure they wouldn't be choosing that. Okay? Sometimes they forget to eat. Natural things that we do, we take for granted, right? And it's a gift from God. Because when the gift is gone, that's it. So you must always recognize that God has his own perfect timing, and you must stand in that faith. People think that faith looks like, oh, well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to make my request. If he doesn't answer it, then that's it. That's not what faith looks like. I heard a pastor say something, Perry Stone. He said his father was gifted in healing, but yet his father had all these elements wrong with his body, and he couldn't heal himself. And he asked his father, well, why? Why did that? And he says, it's so easy to have faith for other people. He goes, it's really easy to have faith for other people. It's another thing to have faith for yourself. And then he said to him, on his deathbed, even though I'm going home to Jesus, I still believe that he answers prayers and he is faithful and he's a healer. And even right to heaven, he believed that. You see, that is the true essence of faith. He believed right to the very end. Just because the request, people were praying, churches were praying that he would get healed, he knew that it was left in God's hands ultimately. Ultimately, it was in God's hands. And he knew that if he doesn't stay on this earth, then God has a bigger purpose. You see how you were getting into my business before? Okay. Always. I'm saying that because earlier we had a word come through and it was like kind of chiming into my message. And so I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And I just want you to ponder it to yourselves, okay? First question. Are you humbling yourself under the hand in every situation of your life and trusting that he knows what's best for you? Example. I'm going to get up and go to the store. Lord, should I go to the store? Is there anything out there that's going to harm me? Am I going to be safe? Or you get into a car and say, Lord, protect me? Are you doing, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't do that neither. I should. After a while, it hits me and I'm like, oh yeah, Lord. And I start to pray. But in every situation, no, even I forget too. Sometimes we're on automatic mode, but this is what we need to aspire to. We need to grow to that where we do ask God in every situation. Okay? If we're going to go take a trip, is this date good? You don't know if somebody's going to hijack a plane. You better ask. And you better ask God, listen, if anything goes, listen, before I go on a plane now, because, I'm from New York City, I got a thing with planes, right? So, and before I go on a plane, I'm like, is this good? Because I'm not stepping on there. You tell me no, and it's on, okay? And, excuse me, the new joke is, I don't know if anybody has ever watched the TV series Manifest. But the new joke is if I get to the airline, they try to change my flight, I'm not going. If anybody don't know what Manifest is, take a look at it. It's on Netflix. People get lost for 5 years. My son assures me at least I won't age. Leave it to him to look on the bright side. Glass half full. That's right. And so I sit there because, something like a plane, you have zero control, right? So this last time I went on a plane and I prayed. And when I got on there, I prayed. I prayed for every step of the way, going the entire trip. I prayed. And so when I got on the plane and I sat there, we had turbulence. The plane started shaking. It actually felt like it dropped at one point. And everybody's like, and everybody's like this. And I'm sitting very peaceful. I said, oh, this is what it looks like when we just leave it in your hands. He said, yes, that's what it looks like when you leave it in my hands. You see, because instantly I didn't go to fear. Yeah. Because I knew what he told me. I was going on a cruise. I'm getting to that cruise. So I don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be a bunch of angels that are going to come alongside and guide this plane to where it needs to go. Right? And I did pray that too. Hey, angels, get on your job. Make sure I get there, land this plane. You know why? Because I know that God told me I was supposed to be there because I prayed about it. I asked God's permission about it. I asked, this is what you want me to do. And he said it. So I had faith in that I was going to reach my destination. I can't control what happens in between, but I know I'm going to reach my destination. So when that plane dropped, I saw people's fear. But I was just sitting there very peaceful. Not 1 ounce of fear came to me. Before I got to the plane, we had all kinds of mishaps. Hurricanes were scheduled to come and all these different things. Not once did I have a fear because I knew what he told me. You're going on that boat. He wanted me on there for a reason. But you see, that's what happens when you leave your worries with him. Yeah. That's what happens when you walk with him in faith. I had the faith to believe. Now, let me just tell you this. When you have faith and you go ahead, you have to also put action to this faith. So God is telling me I'm going to go on this trip. Miraculously, this money came for me to go on the trip. That's telling me, well, he's lining it up. I'm going to keep walking out in the faith. So no matter how many storms were coming, I said, the storm will go away. I called one of the prayer warriors. I said, listen here, get on your job, get rid of it. Okay? And she goes, okay, I'm on it. She went and prayed. God woke me up in the middle of the night. And as I woke up, he showed me how the storm shifted and turned and it went over here. And when I woke up, sure enough, the storm had taken and turned and went to the other direction. I said, that's what I'm talking about, Jesus. You really want me on this boat? That's what I'm talking about. But that's faith, and that's action of faith. In other words, you have to apply an action to the faith. So if God is telling you that you're going to have a husband, right? Walk out in faith that you are going to have a husband. So you know what you do? You start preparing yourself for the husband. God tells you that you're going to have a wife, you start preparing yourself. That's action of faith. So God told me I'm going to be married, right? So last year, he told me to go to the boutique and to buy a wedding dress. He showed me the wedding dress. He showed me what it looked like. And he told me to go buy it. So I went. And then when I asked for the dress, they told me they didn't have it. I stood in the room like, what? They don't have the dress. Well, because I had told him I wanted him to pick out my dress. I didn't want to do it myself. I wanted him to choose it for me. And he did. And so the lady has me trying on everything. So I showed her the picture and I said, you don't have this? Because I heard God say, show it to her. I showed it to her. She says, it's been discontinued. So I'm standing up there in the fitting room trying on all these other dresses. And I said, I did what you said. I don't understand. And all of a sudden I hear the woman on the other side. She's speaking And she comes in, she knocks on there. She goes, you know, I just kept feeling to go look in the spot that this dress is supposed to be in. And sure enough, this last one. And she goes, and by golly, it's your size. I said, imagine that. Thank you. Ding. I tried on the dress. Perfect. The only thing it has to do is get hemmed up because I'm a little person. I'm short. I'm not that little, but I am little. You know? And that's all I have to do. I have to do the tailoring and everything. So I went and I put the dress on layaway and I was paying it off little by little. And then God said to me, I need you to go take it off of layaway. I need you to keep it and keep it in your closet because you will be wearing this. You see, that's action to faith. Because he told me it, I did it. He has to supply the rest. So there it is. I have my dress, my wedding dress is in the closet. And it's beautiful. And I'm like, please let me wear it. Okay. Please let me wear it. He says, you will wear it. Because it's action. Do you understand? I dared to believe. That was my action part. I dared to believe. Dare yourself to believe. Dare yourself that when God says that it's going to be this way, that it will be. Second question, are you cooperating with God and his plan for you? So what does that look like? You see, when God created all of us, he had a plan. He didn't just say, poof, I'm going to make Alana and she's just going to sit there. No, this is what he did. He created the essence and then he spoke to the essence. The essence of Alana. You will be born to these people. You will grow with them. You will learn. He spoke out who her husband was going to be. He spoke out all these different things. Have you asked God what he's spoken out for you? That's how you line yourself up with his plans. What are your plans for me, God? Now, he's not going to tell you everything. He might, but in my experience, he's not going to tell you everything. Trust me, I've tried to haggle, but it doesn't work. You can't haggle with God. But he is going to tell you enough for you to get in line. And you have to understand, when he tells you something, it's not going to always look the way you think. It can be, you can be reading something, you can be watching something, or somebody can come up to you and have a word for you, and that is him talking. It doesn't always have to look like he's going to do an audible voice thing, okay? Or that you hear it in your heart or in your mind. It doesn't always have to be that way. And we always must check to find out if this is God and ask him to send confirmation. All right? To make sure that you know that this is what God has said to you. But you must ask yourself, are you lining up with his plan? So if you asked him for a mate, have you lined up with that? What does that look like? That means start working on yourself, people. Let me give you a clue. Work on yourself, okay? Work on yourself. Don't sit there and keep scrolling through Facebook and just do things and blah, 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 or sitting on games or running around just partying. No, you go ahead and start working on yourself. Why is it that we as human beings think that the person that comes for us gotta look good, but we don't need to look good? Why is that? That's a bit arrogant. We are their prayer. And don't you think that we should get ourselves together to meet their prayers that they're asking for? When we sit down there and we say to God, and I'm always going to tell you to do this, okay? Because God has told me to do this. I'm going to advise you to do this for a mate. Sit down with God and say, what are the characteristics you are looking for in a mate? And talk to him about it. Write it down. Put it in a safe place. but talk to him. So when God told me to do that, so I said, well, I'm not going to have anything much to say. I mean, they just should be breathing, you know. That would be nice, you know. God says, no, Susan, there's more. You just haven't allowed yourself to explore, right? So I sat with him one day and he started highlighting all these different things. I said, well, what else? When I was finished, I had 50 things I was looking for in a husband. That's a whole lot. I was like, is there any human being like this? That's a whole lot I'm asking for. But this is the thing. They might not meet every single thing, all 50, or they might just meet majority of it, the things that are truly important. You know, like there are times when we say, oh, we want them to be tall, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes the perfect person for you might be short. I'm just saying. Okay? So sometimes it can be the little opposite of what you're expecting, but they still have all the characteristics that are true and that is important of what you're looking for. So for me, I said I want somebody who's going to love my family, is going to love my children. See, my children are my family, right? Everybody else, yeah, it's okay if they don't like them, you know. But my children, that's not negotiable. So that was on there because that's not negotiable. I mean, I can't. That's it. I'm not going to take somebody who doesn't have love for my kids. I don't care that my kids are 28 years old. Okay, you're going to love my twins or we won't jive, right? I also put on there that they have to cook. Well, I know how to cook. I just like to be cooked for. It's not a deal breaker for me. It's a desire. You know what I'm saying? Now, if the perfect guy comes and he meets all the other things and he can't cook, oh, come on. I'm not going to be like, well, off with your head. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say goodbye. You don't meet everything. You got to be reasonable with certain things. I'm not telling you to compromise or to go ahead and take less than what you deserve. But you got to look at what you're asking for. You know what I'm saying? What is of true value? Cooking is not really of true value. You know what I'm saying? That's not something that that's fluff. Loving my kids, that's something real. Protecting me, that's real. Loving me for who I am, that's real. Not trying to sit back and make me into something that I'm not, that's real. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's why you have to sit with God, because God will show you what's fluff. You know what I'm saying? I told God, I want men to look this way, that way. I have, I'm Caribbean, so I got a little flavor for Caribbeans. Spanish Caribbean to be exact. Being that my children are half Puerto Rican and the other half is West Indian. And God told me that's not who the person's going to be. I was like, oh. Oh, so that part on the list is not going to be looked at. He says, no, but that's not what's important. Because that isn't. Do you know, I grew up thinking one thing in my life. Both of my parents wanted something different in their child. And they got the opposite of that. But they did not see the value in what God gave them. Because they were too focused in what they wanted me to look like. They wanted me to be this, certain type of Guyanese girl, growing up in the U.S. Okay, you don't think the U.S. is going to influence me? Hello? You felt that way? Take me back to Guyana. I'm just saying, right? But there was a lot of other things. But God made me different. But that doesn't mean that the root, the quality of who I am wasn't there. And my parents will never know. And some people will say you shouldn't say never. Well, unfortunately, I happen to know that on good authority from Jesus, that they're stuck in some places. They'll know when they get to see him, but then it'll be too late to do anything about it. So you don't look at little things like that. You want somebody with blonde hair, blue eyes, blah, blah. But God can give it to you. I'm not saying that he won't. I'm just saying be open and go along with his plan. So sit down and make a list for yourselves. And that way you can come alongside his plan. Third question, are you placing your worries in his hands? Here's how you know. Staying peaceful is an actual proof that you have humbled yourself before God and you trust him with all your needs and whatever you need and whatever cares you have. When you have total peace. Now, if you're worrying all the time and you're like, oh, I just can't, but I believe God will, but I just can't. Listen, I'm just letting you know, you're a little double-minded at that point, okay? If you really trust God and you've humbled yourself before God, then you will have peace. Like how I had peace on the plane because I wasn't being shifted. I knew I had to get to a destination. This is what he said. I sat down and I believed it. And that was it. Doesn't mean you're never going to experience some sort of form of worry or something. No, it just means that when it does come, you say, no, I'm going to submit it to God, and you stop. Right? And then you allow the peace to come in to your life. So in 1 Peter 5, 6 to 11, Peter warns believers to be aware of Satan's deceitful practices, okay, and to resist him. So what does that look like? Well, sometimes if we're flowing in jealousy, right, the enemy can go ahead and use us to do damage to other people. So I had assignments put out on me by the enemy ever since I was a child. And because the people, it wasn't just a person, it was people, different people, had their own issues, had their own strongholds, had their own things that were demonically holding on to them, they took the assignment up from the enemy to destroy me. Hence why I was abused. So, did God try to stop them? Yes, he did. But guess what? The same way God told me not to go to that pizzeria, and I still did, people ignore what God says. And they still do what they need to do. See, what happens is that they lined up with the devil's plan. And he had a plan. You see, you have to be careful that you don't line up. That's what Peter is warning us about in here. Do not line up with the enemy. That means you got to work on your stuff. Right? Do you know how many times, whether we're jealous or we're insecure about ourselves, so if we see somebody secure, we're ready to rip them down. Oh, look at them. They're just being conceited, or they're just being arrogant, or they're just this, or they're just that. I know that because I get that a lot. I get a lot of people telling me about how arrogant and conceited and obnoxious I am. They have no idea how much work I have put into trying to do what God wants me to do and to try to heal myself. In other words, not me healing me, but in other words, doing what God says for me to be healed. So what they see is confidence, but because they struggling with their own insecurities, they pick up the assignment. Well, listen, I need you to go ahead and attack her here, right? They don't even realize that they're hearing an assignment. So when they attack, they're hitting old stuff, bringing me back to old places. I have to make a decision not to go back to old places. And it happens a lot. Sometimes, let's say you're a recovering alcoholic. Somebody will come and dangle alcohol right in front of your face, even though they know for sure that you're a recovering alcoholic. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. That was an assignment to take that other person down. and you now just catered to it. So you have to stop and think about the things that you do and why you do them. And are you truly trying to build someone up and not rip them down? You see, because if you rip down anyone, you're on assignment, not from God. Because God does not encourage us to rip down anyone. He doesn't. Even our worst enemy. Trust me, I've checked. I've checked. Yep. There are people that got on my nerves and I want to do bad things and he tells me no. And I'm like, why? He says no. And you know his words to me were? The things that will come out of your mouth, the things that you will say will destroy their soul. Now I got to say to myself, does that make me feel good or is that bad? Okay? Because it's true. So if I feel good about it and I'm going to go ahead and do it, that means I'm lining up with what the enemy wants. So I have to now be like, I got to do the right thing because this is what God is saying. I can't do what the enemy's. Because God shows me that my words can be very powerful and it can rip a person apart. Okay. But did you see what they did? He said, I saw what they did. But I'm telling you, what your response is going to be is going to cause more damage than what they did to you. Let me handle this. You see, that's the choice that you make. When you line yourself up with God and you allow yourself to come alongside his plan and you humble yourself before God and you walk out in faith, he takes the wheel and he will go ahead and deal with it. Now, you might not see the person get paid back. I sometimes don't. But that's okay because I don't need that. I used to. It took a while to get to that place too. But I don't anymore because I have faith that God will handle it. Now, it's not going to look like what I think that justice should look like, just let the hammer go. No, it can simply be that he sits there and reminds them of all the trails of dead bodies they have left with the words that they have said and all the trails of dead bodies that they have left. And when I say dead bodies, I mean the souls that they have destroyed with their words and their actions. One day they might sit in prayer, and I knew somebody like that. It was this man, and he couldn't stop sobbing. Even when he talked about it, he couldn't stop sobbing because God showed him the trail of people that he has destroyed with his words and actions, how cruel he was. And he was a pastor. He was a huge man of God and everything. And he sat there and he's telling us the story, and he couldn't stop weeping because God showed him how many people he has destroyed with his words and his actions, how he's talked down to them, how he's been. You see, when God brings things together, it doesn't look like how we think they should be paid back, because God is not in the business of paying back. I need you to understand that. You see, when God is in the business of paying back, he gives us double portion of what we lost. He doesn't pay back, meaning that he is going to bring down the hammer and destroy the person. That is not what payback looks like for God. Payback for God is giving us what we have lost from the enemy. That is what payback looks like for God. Payback for us is they get to suffer. They suffer for what they did. God is not in the business of doing that. Because I want to be very honest. Would you want him to do it to you? Because there's nobody walking on this earth that has not done some form of harm some way. You might have done it unintentional, but nevertheless, you wouldn't like God to handle it that way for you. So you must think about those things. God will strengthen and honor in heaven those who will endure suffering for their faith while on this earth. If you're looking for a big payback from God, woohoo. If you look for a big payback from God, in other words, if you're looking for, I got to get my big riches here. What this verse 10 and 11 is talking about is saying that what you really need to look for is what you're going to receive in heaven. Not what you're trying to get here on earth. This stuff is temporary. It's I want to say it's a mask. It's like, it's just momentarily. Eternity, I mean, come on, it's eternity. So here are 3 everyday life principles that Joyce Myers wrote. 1, remember you always have hope in Jesus. So that means whatever you go through, he's there with you. 2, live a godly life in the midst of ungodly world. 3, be patient and stay faithful in the midst of suffering. That right there is hard, but it can be done. I've had to do it. Many people have had to do it. Joyce Myers, who wrote this, she's done it. And so I want to say this to someone. I don't know whether somebody is listening or even here, but God is you've gone through a lot of stuff in your life, and you've just gone through some stuff in your life, but you're coming to a place where things are going to turn around. And you see, this is the part where God is in the business of doing payback. It is to give you what you have lost in your life. And that it could look like amount of peace that you will get, or even financial things, or whatever he sees fit. But this is a scripture that he's been placed on my heart, and he wants me to say it, and I want you to sit back and I want you to receive it, hear it, and understand that God has declared this over your life, okay? It is Amos 9, and I'm going to start from verse 13. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm only doing a section. And it's in the Message Bible. It says, things are going to happen so fast, your head will swim. One thing fast on the heels of the other. You won't be able to keep up. Everything will be happening at once. Everywhere you look, blessings. Blessings like wine pouring off the mountains and hills. I'll make everything right for my people, Israel. And he's not only just talking about Israel, he's talking about all his people that follow him. I don't know where you are in your life, and I don't know what's going on, but God's about to do a turnaround, and there's something that's going to turn. He's about to take those hard moments, and you're going to take them and you're going to pour back to others. And trust me when I tell you, it'll be a bigger blessing to you when you pour back to others. He's going to take, whether you're in a difficult financial situation, he's going to flip it around and he's going to change that. Okay? I'm not one of these pastors that are going to jump around and say every minute you're going to become millionaires and everything. But I need you to understand that being rich can look many different ways. Okay? You get that mate that loves you unconditionally, you're rich. Okay? So God is about to do something. I need you to believe him for it. He's about to do something. Do not allow fear make you run because you don't understand it or you don't know how to control it. It's not for you to control. This is what you need to say. Thank you, Lord. Because whatever he does is for your best. It is, you're going to be so, oh my gosh, I can't even explain where I was to where I am today. I wouldn't trade any of it. Yes. Nothing. And where he's taken me, I have no idea, but I'm ready and willing. Okay? And so we're going to end off by listening to a song. And I want y'all to sit with God again. Those of you on Facebook and everything, we're going to sign off now because we can't play the music because then they start slapping on copyrights and all this other stuff and everybody gets crazy. So if you want afterwards, you can go sit down and just put on some praise and worship music and talk to God, because let him show you what the plan is. Okay? And even if you don't get details by details, let the peace roll over you. Let it roll over you that he's got this. And we're just to line up with it. So thank you for joining us here at House for Healing. And I hope you have a wonderful and beautiful week, right? We love you and thank you for joining us. And over here, I want you guys to prepare as we go ahead and sit with this song. And you're just going to sit there, even with this message that I spoke about and this last verse. Amos